Rashid Redwan was one of 3 Islamic terrorists who killed 8 innocent people in the London Bridge attack. Despite his failure to gain asylum in the UK, in 2012 he was able to travel to Ireland unchecked, where he married his partner Charisse O'Leary.
2012 was the year in which the UK immigration laws changed. So you cannot get an automatic residency just because you're married to a lady from the UK. You have to move somewhere else in order to do that. So Ireland, however, as a foreigner, if he was married to an EU citizen, in this case a UK citizen, he would receive something called a 5 years residency in Ireland, basically allowing him to stay legally here. So it was purely based on immigration rules that they moved to Ireland.
Redwan and O'Leary got married here at the registry office on Lower Grand Canal Street in 2012. There were 2 witnesses for the ceremony, O'Leary's mother and another man. Now, despite the fact that they were married here in 2012, Redwan did not turn up on official radars in Ireland until 2015. 3 years after his marriage here, Redwan applied for and was granted permission to stay in Ireland for 5 years. Before this, the Department of Justice didn't know he was here. Now, it's not a case of him slipping under the radar, it's more a case of Ireland not having an effective radar at all.
Well, the fact that Rashid Redwan went unnoticed under our radar or the law enforcement agency was absolutely worrying. But what can the Muslim community do about individuals that would not go to the mosque, would not interact with the Muslims, and would just live here under the radar? So I think more and the greater responsibility here comes on the law enforcement agency. I mean, I believe it is a failure not on the shoulders of the Muslim community, but a failure on the shoulder of the law enforcement agency here.
How could Redwan get married legally in Ireland in 2012 when he had no residency and no papers?
This is not just a problem for us, it is a problem for law enforcement throughout Europe and further afield in terms of the blurring of the areas between terrorism and crime, where one facilitates the other. And I'm talking about false documentation of a high quality, identities are exchanged, multiple identities. All of that feeds into movement of persons who try and subvert or get around immigration procedures.
In the case of Redwan, the fact that he had been prevented in Cairnryan from travelling to Northern Ireland, I think twice. The suspicion was from the UK state was that this individual was trying to not go to Northern Ireland but was going to Ireland because Ireland wasn't signed up to the Schengen Information System 2, for SIS2 for example. You know, Redwan was on certain databases which we didn't have access to. Now we will have access to, but you know, we should have had an ability maybe to tap into databases to see was he there, and if he is there, has he tried to be in other European countries, has he had failed asylum applications.
We have brought in improvements on our own external borders. We introduced the Interpol Find system here to all airports and ports in November of 2016, which is a database based in Lyon that has searched at points of entry for over 4 million fraudulent travel documents, including passports. Next year, we will be signed up and part of the Schengen Information System. That information system has over 4 billion checks carried out annually. That will include persons wanted in other jurisdictions, persons of interest to law enforcement in our security services in other jurisdictions. So there are massive improvements in terms of our external border network and improving our systems, which we didn't have in 2012.
Once granted permission to stay in Ireland, Redwan would have been able to travel freely in and out of the EU. This photograph of his wife was reportedly taken whilst the couple were on holiday in Morocco.
In terms of UK security, is Ireland seen as the Achilles heel or a weak spot?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that once someone makes it here into Ireland and they intend to do harm, they can basically start operating here, radicalizing here, recruiting here, fundraising here, and then basically move somewhere else in order to mount an attack, just like what happened with London Bridge. However, at the same time, the UK itself also is a danger to Ireland, because most of these people actually started their radicalization journey in the UK.
By 2015, Redwan and O'Leary were living at a different address. They had moved here to live in a flat in this house on Finglas Road, just across from Glasnevin Cemetery on Dublin's north side. The couple secured the flat by dropping leaflets into houses along the Finglas Road, applying to landlords for accommodation. In the leaflet, O'Leary states that she and her husband were looking forward to starting their new life together in Ireland and to settling in Dublin. The truth is they weren't settling here at all. They were here solely to improve Redwan's chances of staying in the UK. As soon as they received notice of Redwan's temporary residency here, they left for London. O'Leary was by now pregnant, and in October of that year she gave birth to a baby girl. The three would share an apartment in East London, not far from the home in Barking of his fellow attacker, Curran Butt. Charisse O'Leary would later separate from Rashid Redwan, claiming that he was abusive towards her. There is no evidence to suggest that she was aware of the London Bridge attacks or was involved in any extremist activity. Could it have been possible that Redwan and Butt were working together here in Ireland?
So the details are very few and far between. We know he had lived in Ireland for a period of time, moved over to the UK, and it's in the UK, it appears, is when he had his first meeting with Butt. They met in a gym. Butt was under active investigation by MI5 at the time. There was concerns that he was going to be using that gym as a place to meet other individuals, try and radicalise and do so. That might have been the location and the time in which that connection was made.
So what kind of a period are we talking about?
So we're talking about December prior to the attack, so 6 or 7 months beforehand. Maybe what brought them together in that gym was because he already had radical ideas, and that's how they made the connection.
I suppose the question everyone would ask is, how come they didn't strike here?
ISIS's whole goal is to create these big bits of theatre. They both were living in London at the time. London Bridge, Borough Market wasn't too far away, so it was just a naturally easier option to go for. Terrorists on the whole just go for the easiest option, the strategy of least resistance, because the more effort they put into things leads to more risk, leads to higher rates of detection. So they just went for a very simple, straightforward plan.
Can you give us any kind of picture of where these people are in the country? Is it Dublin?
Well, it's not just Dublin. You will be aware recently of a case in Waterford where an individual pleaded guilty to terrorist financing in support of Islamic State. So it's not just Dublin.
The 25-year-old appeared before Waterford District Court last week on charges relating to international terrorism.
Waterford resident Hassan Bal pleaded guilty to providing funding for ISIS to an overseas contact in Bosnia-Herzegovina.
The 26-year-old admitted to unlawfully transferring €400, intending or knowing the money would be used for the benefit or purposes of the terrorist group known as Islamic State.
Bal also admitted to attempting to receive money from an ISIS contact in London.
Hassan Bal has built a network of contacts across Europe, and Interpol, the Met and FBI had all been involved in this investigation.
Bal was born in the UK but then moved to Ireland when he was 12 and holds Irish citizenship. He was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. Now, the Irish authorities and the British counterparts have woken up to the fact that Ireland is being used as a logistics base for followers of Islamic State, where funds are being raised through cybercrime and money laundering. But the question is, have they woken up too late? And how many similar cases have gone undetected? There's another fraud story currently under investigation that leads here to Belmain in Dublin. In September 2016, a data management company fell victim to invoice redirection fraud. They paid €2.8 million into a bank account they had been misled to believe belonged to a legitimate contractor. Realising their mistake, the company reported it to Gardaí, who froze the money and started tracking its movements. Some of the cash had been transferred to the bank account of a 26-year-old pizza delivery man named Atif Saeed. Gardaí searched Saeed's apartment here at Churchwell Road in Belmain. Now, they uncovered evidence that he had withdrawn some of the €2.8 million, and crucially, they also uncovered documentation that tied him to the company used in the fraud. Saeed was charged with offences under the Criminal Justice Money Laundering and Terrorist Financing Act. During his trial, evidence was given that Saeed had been persuaded to move to Ireland by his father and a man named Raza. Raza had promised to help set him up in accommodation and in college. And in return, Saeed was to open a bank account and transfer money when requested. Atif Saeed pleaded guilty to the charges. He was remanded in custody for 1 year before being deported back to the UK.
I met Atif in 2015. We lived together. He was really, really nice guy. I mean, I remember on one time when Raza would have got really aggressive, Atif stopped us from fighting. Like, he treated me like I was his younger sister. To me, I think Atif was, used and abused by Raza. When we lived together, he treated him more of a slave. I think one thing me and Atif had similar, like, we both didn't have anyone that would kind of be there for us. And I think that was the main thing that Raza used on both of us. I think we were both easily influenced by him.
We understand that Raza is officially wanted by the Gardaí and that Aliyah has been interviewed by both the Irish and UK authorities. However, her claims have yet to be substantiated or proven.
What is the current status of Mr. Raza? Is he officially wanted here in relation to that fraud?
That investigation is currently ongoing. It's being conducted by the Garda Economic Crime Bureau. We are aware of the investigation, but as it is an ongoing investigation, we're not in a position to comment at this particular time in relation to where it is at.
Keep moving, stay as calm as you can and keep moving.
The main reason that I'm talking about my experience with them is because I'm afraid that if I don't do that, then maybe there's someone out there that is going through the exact same situation or going through the exact same thing, and they're just saying that they can't talk out. Yeah, if you talk out, maybe people are not going to like it, maybe you're going to be isolated, but at least you've done the right thing. I still feel responsible that I was associated with those people. Like, I felt really sick, and I was thinking, like, I used to think before that these people were right. How can I feel like that? I mean, they've killed innocent people, they've killed someone for no reason, and it just makes me absolutely disgusted that they did that. Islam is completely against that, what they're doing. So they think that they've gained paradise, but the reality is that, like, Allah is not going to forgive someone for doing that.
The London Bridge attack was understandably a source of grave concern for the Irish security services. Now, whether you believe there are 150 extremists or just 30 operating in the Republic of Ireland, the fact is that this country is seen as an attractive place for them to locate, whether it's to raise funds, whether just to lie low, or to gain access to the UK and Europe through the back door. Now, our own homegrown terrorist organisation here in Ireland, the Provisional IRA, once coined the phrase, "We have to be lucky once, you, as in the state, must be lucky all the time."
There's a kind of awareness in Brussels and an awareness among other EU member states that Ireland needs to up its game.
The fact that Ireland is neutral, it will not exclude it from being attacked in the future.
And I would ask every Muslim in Ireland that if they know of any individuals that believes in these hate narratives, do not remain silent. Speak to the Muslim leadership and also share information with the Gardaí.
The utterly unpredictable nature of Islamic terror attacks means that our security services must be vigilant all the time.
Thank you.